My name is Ryan, and this happened when I was 16 years old, just 3 days before Christmas. Even now, years later, I still feel sick in my stomach when December comes around. Christmas used to be my favorite time of year. The lights, the music, the smell of food, the feeling that everything was safe and happy. That night destroyed all of that. My parents had left town to visit my grandfather, who was sick in another state. They didn't really like the idea of leaving me alone, but our town was small, quiet, and safe. Nothing ever happened here. Everyone knew everyone. That's why they trusted me. The first night alone was normal. I ordered food, stayed up late, watched movies, and slept on the couch. The second night was December 23rd, and that was the night everything changed. By night, the whole neighborhood was covered in white. I was in my room around 9:30 p.m., laying on my bed with my phone, half watching videos, and half thinking about how lonely the house felt without my family. The heater hummed softly, the wind tapped lightly against the window, and for a while I almost felt calm. Then I heard something that didn't belong. It was singing. Very faint at first, like it was being carried by the wind. A man's voice, slow and off-key, singing Jingle Bells. My chest tightened instantly. Nobody ever walked through our neighborhood at night, and no one ever sang outside, especially in the snow. I sat up slowly, feeling uneasy, and listened closer. I stood up and walked slowly toward my window, turning off the light so I wouldn't be seen easily. Then, under the streetlight at the end of the road, I saw a tall figure standing completely still. He wasn't walking, he wasn't moving. He was just standing there facing my house while he sang. Something about that felt deeply wrong. I closed the curtain quickly and told myself I was overthinking it, but my hands were already shaking. I told her I was fine and didn't mention the singing because I didn't want to worry her over something that might be nothing. That's when I heard the footsteps. Slow, heavy crunching sounds coming through the snow outside. I held my breath and listened as the sound moved closer to my house. My heart began to pound so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then I heard the man speak for the first time, and when I heard my own name come from his mouth, my blood turned cold. I had never seen this man before in my life. I could hear him breathing between the words. I ran to my closet and shut myself inside, pressing my phone to my chest as I called 911 with shaking hands. The operator picked up, and I tried to explain what was happening without crying, telling her there was a man outside my house, singing and saying my name. She told me police were on the way and that I needed to stay hidden. While I stayed curled up in the darkness of my closet, listening to my own breathing, I heard his footsteps moving along the side of the house. The sound was slow and steady, like he knew I wasn't going anywhere. Then I heard the back door handle turning, hard, over and over again. That's when he started laughing. It wasn't loud or crazy dot, it was soft, low, and full of something twisted. He began singing again, this time a different song, and his voice was closer than before. He was inside my yard now. I felt completely helpless, like a trapped animal. Then I heard tapping at my bedroom window. He stopped singing and whispered my name again through the glass. I could hear his breath on the window. Suddenly, the tapping turned into pounding on my bedroom door. I screamed into the phone while the operator begged me to stay hidden. Just when I thought the door would break open, red and blue lights flashed violently through the cracks in the closet. I heard running footsteps in the snow moving fast and heavy away from the house. The police arrived moments later and found me shaking uncontrollably in my closet. When they searched outside, they found deep footprints in the snow leading from the road straight to my house, circling it again and again, stopping directly under my bedroom window before disappearing into the woods behind my yard. My bedroom door was cracked and damaged, and scratch marks were carved into the back door handle. The man was never found. The police told me it was probably someone disturbed or on drugs, but none of that explained how he knew my name. My parents came back the next morning, and when they saw the damage to the house and the way I couldn't stop shaking, they decided we were moving. We left that neighborhood 3 months later. I never spent another Christmas there. Even now, years later, when I hear someone singing Christmas songs at night, my chest tightens, my hands begin to shake, and I always feel like someone is standing just outside my window in the snow waiting for me to look. My name is Ethan, and I used to believe that nothing bad could happen on Christmas Eve. I believed it was a night protected by lights, prayers, music, and family. What happened to me happened on the brightest night of the year, on a street full of decorations, inside a warm house that smelled like cinnamon and pine. And it still finds me in my sleep. My mom had passed away 2 years earlier from a sudden illness, and since then, Christmas had felt empty. That night, he was working a double shift at the fire station because another firefighter had gotten sick. I told him I was fine. I didn't want to be the reason someone else had to work on Christmas. I told him I'd just play games, watch movies, and sleep. Before he left, he hugged me longer than usual and told me to lock all the doors and windows. I promised I would. The evening passed slowly. I ate frozen pizza, watched cheesy Christmas movies, and tried not to think about how quiet the house felt. Outside, the neighborhood was alive with light. Every house glowed. Trees were wrapped in colors. Music drifted from open windows. Everything looked happy. Around midnight, the street finally grew quiet. I turned off the living room lights and went to my bedroom at the back of the house. I left a small lamp on and laid in bed scrolling through my phone, feeling sleepy but restless at the same time. That was when I heard the first knock. I froze, staring at my door. Nobody ever came to our house that late. I waited, listening. After a few seconds, the knock came again. Same pace. Same softness. I checked my phone. 12:17 a.m. Christmas Day had just begun. I got out of bed slowly and walked toward the front hallway, my heart beating faster with each step. When I reached the front door, I looked through the peephole. The porch light was on. Snow rested quietly along the steps and railing. The street across the road was empty. I stood there confused, trying to convince myself it had been my imagination. I turned away from the door and started walking back down the hall when the knocking started again. Louder this time, more demanding. I turned back and looked through the peephole again. This time I saw him. A man stood on my porch, facing the door directly. I couldn't see his eyes clearly, only his mouth. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning. I felt cold all over. I stepped back from the door slowly and called out, asking what he wanted. He didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his hand and knocked again. Then he spoke for the first time. "Ethan," he said softly. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't said my name. I hadn't asked who he was through the door. I backed away until my back hit the wall. My legs felt weak. Then again, dot slow and steady, like he was counting. I ran back to my bedroom and locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone as I called my dad. It rang and rang, but he didn't answer. I tried again. Nothing. My chest felt tight and my breathing came in short, sharp bursts. Then I heard the front door handle move. He was trying to open it, slowly, patiently. When the door didn't open, the knocking began again, louder and angrier. I stayed in my room, frozen in place, listening to the sound shake through the house. Then everything went quiet. No knocking, no movement, no voice. Just silence. I waited, not daring to move. Minutes passed. I told myself maybe he had left. Maybe it was just some drunk guy who had knocked on the wrong door. I slowly unlocked my bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. The house was dark and silent. I took one step forward, then another. Cold air poured inside. Snowflakes drifted across the floor. My heart dropped into my stomach. I turned to go back to my room, and that's when I saw him standing at the end of the hallway, inside my house. He stood completely still, his body half hidden in shadow. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew he was looking right at me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. That broke me. I ran. I ran back to my room and slammed the door shut, locking it with shaking hands. I heard his footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy, coming closer. The wood creaked. The door bent inward slightly. I started crying, begging the operator to hurry. The pushing stopped. The footsteps moved away. For a moment, I felt hope. Then I heard a new sound. His eyes were wide and unblinking. His mouth stretched into a thin, broken smile. Once, twice, 3 times. Then he whispered through the glass, "You should never open the door on Christmas." That was the last thing he said before the police arrived and flooded the yard with light. When they searched the house, they found muddy footprints leading from the open front door to my bedroom window. They followed the prints into the backyard where they vanished in the snow. They never found the man. My dad arrived minutes later and held me while I shook uncontrollably in his arms. I didn't sleep for 3 days, Doc. We moved out of that house before the next Christmas. Even now, years later, I never answer knocks after dark, and every Christmas Eve, no matter where I am, I lock every door and window twice. Because some sounds never come from outside, sometimes they come for you. My name is Lucas, and I used to believe that memories were the scariest things a person could carry. I was wrong. Memories fade with time. What happened to me one Christmas never did. It followed me across cities, across years, across pieces of my life that should have been clean and new. Some things don't stay in the past, no matter how deeply you bury them. I learned that lesson the hard way on the coldest Christmas of my life. I was 15 when it started. My parents were struggling that year. Money was tight. My dad had lost his job, and my mom was picking up extra shifts at the hospital just to keep the lights on. That Christmas felt thinner than all the others. Fewer decorations, cheaper food, smaller smiles. Still, they tried to make it feel normal for me. On Christmas Eve night, they both had to work late, leaving me alone in the house until after midnight. They apologized 100 times, but I told them it was okay. I said I was old enough to handle one quiet night by myself. I wish I hadn't been so confident. It was snowing heavily outside, thick flakes that swallowed sound and made the world feel far away. I spent most of the evening on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, flipping through channels that weren't really holding my attention. The house felt too quiet, like it was listening to me breathe. Around 10 p.m., I heard someone knock on the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. None of our relatives lived nearby. I hesitated, then walked slowly to the door and looked through the peephole. A man stood on the porch. He was older, maybe in his late 30s or early 40s. He wore a red winter jacket, faded and dirty, and his beard was uneven and messy. In his hand, he held a small wrapped box with a silver bow on top. I cracked the door open just a little and asked if I could help him. He smiled in a calm, tired way and said he was part of a local charity delivering last-minute gifts. He told me the box had my name on it. That stopped me. I asked him how he knew my name. He glanced down at a clipboard and read it out loud, along with my address. Everything he said sounded normal, safe, boring. I should have trusted my instinct instead of his paperwork. Against that quiet feeling of fear in my chest, I opened the door and took the gift from his hands. He wished me a Merry Christmas and turned back into the snow without another word. I locked the door and took the box to the living room. It was light, too light to be anything real. Inside, I found a small wooden music box, carved with stars along the edges. When I wound it, it played a slow, sad Christmas tune I didn't recognize. There was no note inside, no card. Just the music and the strange feeling that came with it. I placed it on the coffee table and told myself it was just a nice gesture from people trying to be kind. Still, that night, I had trouble sleeping. I kept thinking I heard the music playing softly from the living room, even though I knew I had wound it down. The next morning, my parents came home exhausted but smiling. I told them about the gift. They were surprised but grateful and assumed it had been part of the local holiday drive. We ate breakfast together and tried to pretend everything was okay. That afternoon, I went outside to shovel snow and noticed something strange near the edge of our yard. Deep in the snowbank by the fence, I saw dark fabric sticking out. I dug it out with my shovel. It was the same red jacket the man had been wearing. Frozen stiff, empty. No footprints led to it, no blood. No sign of how it got there. The fear hit me so suddenly I felt dizzy. I ran inside and told my parents. My dad called the police immediately. The officers arrived, examined the jacket, and took it with them. They told us maybe someone had tried to dump old clothes and run before being seen. They said there was probably a simple explanation, but none of them could explain how the jacket matched the one worn by the man who handed me the gift. That night, we couldn't stop thinking about it. My mom wanted to throw the music box away, but I felt strangely attached to it, even though it made my stomach hurt whenever I looked at it. We compromised by putting it in a drawer in the basement. For weeks, nothing happened. Life slowly returned to normal. The snow melted. School resumed. The fear faded into a weird story we told a few close friends. Then, one afternoon in early February, my dad went into the basement to grab some old tools. A few minutes later, I heard him scream. Not shout. Not curse. Scream. The kind of sound that comes from deep inside someone when they see something that breaks their sense of reality. We ran down the stairs and found him standing in front of the open drawer. Inside, the music box was gone. In its place lay a bundle of old bones wrapped in dirty cloth. The police came again. This time, there was no guessing. The remains were human, an adult male. They never figured out how the body appeared there. No camera had seen anything. No door had been opened. After that, things got worse. Strange sounds followed us through the house at night. Soft footsteps. Slow breathing near doorways. The music would start playing by itself from empty rooms. We moved 3 months later, as far away as we could afford. We took almost nothing with us. We left behind furniture, clothes, memories. I thought we had escaped it. For years, nothing happened. I grew older. I went to college. My parents rebuilt their lives. I told myself it was all just a chain of horrible coincidences wrapped in childhood fear. Then, 10 years later, on Christmas Eve, when I was living alone in my first small apartment, I heard a knock at my door around 9 p.m. My stomach dropped before I even stood up. I looked through the peephole. No one was there. On the floor in front of the door sat a small, familiar box wrapped in silver paper with a bow on top. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was the same wooden music box. And when I wound it, the same slow, sad Christmas tune filled the apartment. That night, as the music played on its own from my kitchen counter and the lights flickered softly, I finally understood the truth. Some gifts are not meant to be opened. Some doors are not meant to be answered. And some things, once invited in, will follow you for the rest of your life.